Greetings, Steve Scarisbrook, and I'm back. I'm awfully sorry. I had a couple of weeks of feeling really bad after the COVID injection that I had. Um, I'm all for it. I think it's a great idea, and I think the government's done really well to get this many done so quickly. So good on them. But I didn't feel well after it, and neither did many people that I've talked to. A lot of people said, "Oh, yeah, I didn't feel that good," but 2 or 3 days, and I was back up running again, and then. I had to catch up with other projects that I'm working on for the university and my own private stuff. So just had to get the head down and get it all done and back into line so that I could concentrate back onto this, which is all me, nothing to do with the university that much, although I do get a lot of feeds coming in from other members of staff who know webinars going on, so good on them. So here we go. The CPD site is now up and running and live. And as you can see from the screen on my right, on this thing, my left, whatever, I've updated a lot. There's a couple going on today in about a couple of hours' time. The value of sustainable green infrastructure for architectural design. Could be a good one. The Equity Act and the way forward. Now, I'm not sure on this, but hey, it's tomorrow. And I think I might just attend this one just to see. It's an RBA CPD core curriculum item, so it'll do well on your list. Now, here's one on the 9th of March that I'm really interested in. Specify natural stone for walls and flooring tiling from Ardex. Now, Ardex, we all know, has been the mortar that you use to glue the damn things down. So, it's a good one. And again, it's RBA CPD. Specifying hard metals. Now, I've never had a big problem with this, but hey, why not attend it? And it's RBA'd, and I think it is by SIG, Shuffled Installation Group, and their design and technology section. Could be interesting. The 10th of March, we've got Coping During Uncertainty. Now, this is the Northwest CIAT Aspiration Group. Please attend this one and give them your support. Aspiration is very key in CIAT, where we are pushing hard to keep the members in at their student and other levels where they come up to be and start to learn their trade. This is really important to us, so please attend and support them. 11th of March, main principles of physical security from Barker Fencing. Well, whatever it's important. 17th of March, Glendimplex, heat pumps and building regulations. I'm going to attend this one. It'll be good. Accelerate sustainability on the 25th of March. Really, I'm going to go along on this one and see what they say about it. Sustainability is very important, as we all know, getting the right materials for the right job. And so, have a look at it and see what they say. On the 26th of March, the MBS platform. Now, this is done, I think, by CIAT Northern Ireland, and always they do a good show. And this one is not going to be anything less than damn good. So have a look at it and see what you think. I'm really would like some feedback on some of these. So this one, I'm sure I'm going to get some great feedback on. Time transformation of AEC. Now, this is CIT Wessex. They've been constantly churning out good links and good webinars. I suggest you go and register for this one on Eventbrite and see what else we can get from them. But I think I'm going to go to this and see what they say. Again, CIAT Wessex Mac Group, optimizing building physics design. It could be quite good. Physics is always interesting to me, so let's go and I'm going to have a look at it. I shall attend this one. So that's it. Those are the new ones up and ready for the March and into, right up to the end of March. So if you've got anything that you want me to put onto the list, onto the site, give me a shout on the email or give me a ring. You know where I am. and let me know about it, and I'll put them up. For general webinar stuff, that's about it. I did promise that I would update the podcast show notes, and I've done that by putting in this here, and this is the editing view that you see here. So what I've done is I've put up a lot of stuff there that will help you do your own research, which is always important, and make some notes and put them where you normally put your notes. I'm poised at the moment. I use Google Keep an awful lot, and I put a lot of stuff there. I also make a lot of verbaceous notes and stuff in my Google Docs, and I put them into either a folder within my lecture notes section, usually because that's where I'm doing the research. Or if I've got a book I'm writing or anything else, then I put it into that folder. So I've got my notes there. You can search on it, it's fine. But I'm now beginning to look at, I work on a Mac at home, and Mac have got this great thing called Notes. Now, Notes is very good. You can't knock it at all. You can search on it. You can search on anything, and you can get subfolders set up. And the ease of putting stuff into it is so good. Now, Google Keep has a problem. If you want to put a website on, it puts a link in, no more. If I want to put a PDF in, it won't do it. Apple Notes does. So I'm poised at the moment. I've always lived on this balance between Google and Apple, simply because I like the machines. But I've got now 3 Chromebooks, and they're littered around the house. So I don't have to keep them undressed, taking the power cables off and moving it around to wherever I am. I've got 3 Chromebooks, which are excellent machines. And they're littered around the house. So I do from one, I go to another one, just power it up, run it, and then shut it down and come back to where I was. And my Mac stays within my study. So, it's a great way of working. And, I'm going to stick with it. My machine here is 6 years old now. So it's coming up to its retirement, but it's working fine. It just works. The MacBook Air, the smaller one, is that 13-inch? I don't know. I think that's the one I might go for, but we'll see. Time tells, and this one is working reasonably well, touch wood. So that's the show notes done. One of the subjects that I'm going to stick with, and with the idea of SUDS, and it really is very important, because hey, this picture could have been anywhere at the beginning of February, March, flooding everywhere. And we are to blame. There is no way around. You can blame all of this on climate. Some of it is to do with climate, I'll give you that. But a lot of it is down to the way that we've developed areas without the understanding of what we're doing. One of the lectures that I give to my students is the idea that water distribution is incredibly important, and it can't be looked at just from the UK. It has to be a global look. Now, there are certain books out there, and I've listed the one that I've been using. It took me an age to find this book, and I found it eventually on the internet, and I bought it. A bit expensive, and it came in from the States, so it took a while to get here. But it is the report, or the research, that was done on the global water use, and it is scary. Let me just see if I can do this, and I'll be into present mode. And you can see here, the amount of water available in everything is insanely small. For all the water that's on this planet, we can only drink 0.76% of it. That's just crazy. And yet we just do so much crap to the water supply. Why? I just don't understand this at all. So go and have a look at the chart that I put up, and go and see if you can find Igor Shikaramov's World Fresh Water Resources. It is insanely good reading. If you're a techie like me, it is a week's worth of research looking at it and understanding it. It's fabulous. And you just got to go and look at it. I mean, it's scary, the amount of water that is in the planet, yet we can't touch it. The other one that I want you to look at is the amount of water in the atmosphere, 0.006%. Now, when we talk about climate change, we all talk about carbon and all this stuff that's going on. But there is another one out there that it is equally as important to look at, and that is the vapor within the atmosphere and how that affects everything. It's not the whole story. And one of the things I teach my students is to stand back and look at the global picture. You know, this idea of a butterfly flapping its wings and a tornado being set up on the far side of the planet, isn't that stupid? You know, you've got to look at the whole gambit as far as weather is concerned. And it's everything, not just your little countryside. You've got to look at everything. And the other area that I'm going to go out of this now and just go back onto the normal thing. I hope this worked. You've got to look at the whole planet and see where we've got water scarcity. I mean, it's crazily misunderstood the way that water is a natural right. It might be, but it isn't good for some people. Look at the areas down where we've got the Sahara and areas like that. You know, it's crazy the amount of scarcity of the water. I mean, the whole of South Africa is in dire problems. So are areas north of Bangladesh and India. Come down into Australia. I mean, look at everybody in Australia, mostly lives down the bottom right-hand side, Sydney. And they've got water problems, as we know. Look at the way that South Africa is on one side of the Andes pretty good, but on the other side is in dire need. The USA. Okay, so the Northwest and the Midlands is okay. But when you come down into the south, into the Mexico, Louisiana area and things like that, they've got problems. And it's dire. And when you come down into the middle of Mexico, stuff like that, again, they've got problems. We don't hear much about that one. But we've got to look at this on a global scale. I'm giving a lecture for proctors in June, and one of the things is I'm going to start looking at the way that we understand the basics of weather, and it's all down to the seasons. And I'm going to go into this in very big detail, simply because we misunderstand the way that the weather works, and the start of it all has got to be the way the seasons are generated. They are unchanging. They are always there. They may not look the same to you and I when it comes round to it, but you've really got to understand the way that the Earth orbits the planet and the way that that orbit is set up around the sun. Interesting stuff when you look at the aphelion and the perihelion. As you can see there, I've got massive notes on this, and it is really interesting to look into. So let's move on. And if you get a chance, attend the proctors do, because I go into it in a great way. Again, the tilt of the planet is everything. It's not to be put to one side, so we've got a tilt. It is the way that the Earth orbits in a specific way that it does, and the tilt that provides the seasons. So come along and listen to the lecture, and you'll get more on that. Oh, what else have we got? SUDS. Okay, so let's go back onto this idea of SUDS. And so we're looking at the weather, and the weather is hugely important in the way that SUDS is looked at. And so we've got to start looking at the way that we shed water. Do we shed it, or do we keep it? And if we do shed it, do it in a responsible way. And that is try and keep as much on the plot of land that you're designing for, and then only then do you shed it into the water coursing systems, i.e. the rivers or the aquifers under the ground. Keep it as much as you can. And so SUDS, when we teach it to our students, is all about looking at ways to keep it on the site. Aquifers underneath the ground in the storage systems, slowing it down as you migrate it out, or using it for swales and little rivers or ponds and stuff. You know, it all adds up. But the big stuff is really trying to keep that water in and reusing it, and make sure you can slow the water down by collecting it on the roof and then using that roof water in a grey roof scenario, pushing it back and flushing loos and stuff like that. Or just storing it ready for putting into the garden when the dry weather comes, or just keeping it on site and just letting it slowly trickle off. I'm going to go back onto this idea of fresh water and the stress it comes onto the planet. I really should move this slide up, I suppose, to go underneath the way that we look at the planet. But look at the difference in freshwater stress between 1995 and 2025. It's only a few years away, guys. Yet look at the problems across the equator. It is in a major difficulty. So when you're looking at water, there is a damn good reason why SUDS should be high upon your agenda for detailing. I mean, there are stacks of reports out there to go and read, and I give the links to them. UNESCO report, massive the way that we can go and read what they've been doing. One of the big things that is now becoming more and more apparent is that we can do better with our farming. Okay, so we're not going to enter into the argument about the way that meat should be used. I'm a big meat eater, and I'm not going to enter into that argument at all. But crops, yes. Can we do something about that? Wheat and the big grain, where we need massive areas of land to produce good grain, then I don't think there's much we can do about it. But for smaller crops, then vertical farming has got to be your salads and stuff like that. If we can start to put them into indoor systems in a vertical farm, reuse the water properly, putting the nutrients in that are correct for the use of that plant growth, then great. Let's look at it. And I'm massive into this, and I can see it being bigger and bigger. So rainwater harvesting, the grey water scenario, collecting what you're not using on the roof and pushing it back into your toilet system. I mean, there are things you can. My gran had an old farmhouse down south into Gloucestershire, and I remember going with my gran to her sister's. And they had butts around the house, big water butts, and that's all they had. They hadn't got running water, and they drank the water. They boiled it, obviously, but they bathed in this water. It was great, and it was soft as anything. It's rainwater. It's soft, not like Birmingham's water, which is predominantly hard and full of limestone. Oh, terrible stuff. So try and look into this idea of putting in a collection system. I mean, one of the things this is what I sketched out for a student of mine, and I'll go into present mode and just put it up so you can see it. And so the property, collecting the water, putting it into a series of collection things underground, ready to push back into the house. But if it overflows, then you put it into a swale system to come around. And once the swale's used all that up and you put it into a pond and kept it, then you put it underground and keep it there. And then slowly let it out, put it into the stream systems or drill down into the watercourse below there and put it down into that. Bit contentious because we really do need to protect the underground water sources. So it needs to be filtered and made sure there is no contamination to it. But that goes without saying. Let's go back and have a look at the rest of it. So we've done as much as we can on this one. Soft or hard water, I've already talked about this. It is a great way of understanding how to detail. And so many technicians I know no difference between water. It's palatable, fine. But there are so many houses in areas with hard water and soft water that you need to understand this. The hard water areas, their pipes start to fur up. We should be taking the hard lime out of the water before we use it to make it soft. I know it's contentious. There are a lot of houses out there being built by the house builders, and they just do know nothing about it. And I think they should. So I mention it most of the time. Just take care of using your water. Most WCs have the big and little button on it. And just use it. If you're having a wee, just use the small button. And if you're doing something else, the big button. It makes sense. Come on, guys, do it. Water sources. I'm in different areas on this one. Yes, there is a need to store large amounts of water, and I think carefully done, it is a good way of doing it. I mean, Birmingham was built on its own reservoirs by damming up large areas that we bought up in Wales, and then we shipped that water by streams and aqueducts to Birmingham, and it worked very well and still does. I mean, most of Birmingham's water comes in from the Elan Valley, and so we have good water supplies. But we need more now. The city is growing the way it is, and so we have to use wells and pumps from wells to supplement it. And it works, but hey, they have to work hard at it. So understand it. Boreholes, again, I've already touched on this earlier. You have to be very careful. We do not want to contaminate the aquifers under the ground. Be very careful what you put in, either what you take out and what you put in. I'm not going to go into it here. It's not the race, but do some research on it, please, if you need to. Site retention of water, I've already touched on. It is really good way of understanding how we can slow down the migration of water. I mean, supermarkets, mostly they've got huge, great car parks, and a lot of them have got this system underneath them, where all the water coming off the car parks and the roofs of the supermarket are now stored underground and then slowly let out into the aquifer system. It's a good way of working. I've done this many times over the years, and I think it's a great way of doing it. River coursing. Hey, I could spend a whole lecture just doing nothing else but this. We just really do need to stop doing what we're doing. Containing the rivers, it's a nightmare. Look at what's happening. It's not just one area. One planning authority on one end of a river is creating problems for all the planning authorities further down there, because the amount of water they're shedding straight away, the earth can't absorb it. They've got no green fields to allow the river to expand and contract. This was done in the old days, and we just don't do it anymore. We just build on it and expect it to be all right. But it's not all right. We should be allowing the rivers to expand, and so we don't get flooding in the urban areas. But now we're building on them. We're building on floodland, which in itself is insane. But they're causing all sorts of problems because they're increasing the number of waters. And when the rivers do expand and they can't stop it, then they cause all sorts of problems and people moan. I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me. So let's move on before we get into trouble. Water discharge to ground. We've already gone into that with the slide up above about boreholes. Building regs on discharge of rainwater to public sewers. It is there, guys. Go and talk to the building regulations. Go and read the building regulations. It is set out quite clearly how to do it. And so, I'm not going to go into it here. You really do need to go and look at part B. Is it part B? Can't remember. No, H. And have a look at that. Grey water scenario, inside or outside. There is a lot of companies out there producing these tank systems now. For a bigger house, indoors is good. If you've got a cellar, then you can put all your water into that, and maintenance and changing of filters is dead easy. Otherwise, put it into the garden. Okay, so you've got a problem getting down into the filters, but you're doing the job right. So takes your choice, indoors or outdoors. What else have we got? Rainwater harvesting are the facts. I mean, for my students, I put a little video up, and it's quite good. I'm going to put the links up on the show notes for that, so you can have a look at it. Grey water sources, roofs, stored clean filter, pump back into the building, shower water, wash hand basins. It's all good ways of reusing the water. And, you can do this a couple of times just by filtering it out properly. Again, pretty standards for that, the way that we're looking. Inverted roofs. I mean, big shout for Bowder. I used to work for the Dow Chemical Company on styrofoam, and we invented the inverted roof under Dow Styrofoam. But since the demise of Dow Styrofoam, the construction products, and being bought out by another company, Bowder have stepped up to the mark. They were always a good company. They're now an excellent company. I've got no shouts for them other than they come and lecture to my students, and I've always liked their lectures. It is good, sound technology. And if you need any help, then go down to Bowder. I mean, that's what I do. Swells and ponds. I mean, it's nice to have the atmosphere changed just by putting in a little bit of tree planting, a little bit of little tiny rivers or swales, ponds, and all the planting that goes with it. It makes the atmosphere so much different to the hard landscapes that we're doing. Soakaways, the old-fashioned way of putting in gravel or bricks into a pit and just feeding into them, just don't do it anymore, guys. There are some excellent products on the marketplace that allow you to filter the water, return it back in as grey water, or filter it into the garden. And I've done several jobs by looking at it this way. Plants and tree types. I mean, I'm no great gardener, but I know what I'm doing as far as my own garden is concerned. But if you do need help, there are companies out there. I mean, go down to one of the big planting places, the garden centres. There's always somebody there who would help you out, looking for the right plants and giving you the advice you need. Otherwise, just go to one of the companies and make sure you know which one. Green walls is another excellent way, and I did this. I'm going to do this later on. I've just done a lecture to my students on green walls. And so, look at the way that we can use grey water and feed it into green walls. I mean, it is a great way of doing that, and they're so nice. Again, references, many of those. I'll put the links up into the show notes for you, so you've got them. But that's it. Take care in the changing weather. The daylight is now becoming a little bit easier with the amount. I mean, it's 5 o'clock here before it gets too dark. So, that's great for me. I'm just looking at the window and at my study, and it's, I think it's raining. So that's it. Be good, be safe, and I'll talk to you next week. I should be back okay, no problems now. I'm catching up well. My private projects are doing exceedingly well. I'm going to go into that next week, I think, and just show you what I'm doing, because it's quite interesting. So that's it. Be good, be safe, and I will see you the next time. Cheers.